Hi, Jim here, just dropping in before this week's episode to tell you about my latest movie, The Apocalypse Box. It's a horror film and I'd love for you to check it out. If you go to apocalypsebox.co.uk, you can find all the links on where you can watch the movie. Right, let's get on with this week's episode. Hi, Jim here, and you're listening to the Honest Filmmaker podcast, career advice from people in the business. This week, I'm speaking to director and animator Will Becher. Will is a director and a creative at Aardman in Bristol. He joined the animation team on Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, becoming one of Aardman's youngest ever feature film animators. Will has since worked on series and commercials and feature films as lead character animator. He also directed the Shaun of the Sheep movie, Farmageddon. I talked to Will about how he got into the industry. We chatted about some of the amazing projects he's worked on while he's been at Aardman. He also talked me through what it was like directing a stop-motion feature film, and he told me about the Aardman Academy. Enjoy. I'll start where I start with most people. Did you go to university? Did you study? How did you get into animation?
Yes, I did. I went off to study at Edinburgh College of Art, and it was one of the few courses at the time that seemed to teach whatever type of animation you wanted to do. So I've always sort of been a massive fan of stop motion. That was very much, what I had in my mind when I went there to try and get a job eventually somewhere like Aardman. And it was a 3-year course up in Scotland. Loved it, every minute of it. And it was really a sort of filmmaking course actually, rather than it was called animation, but we learnt everything about making short films.
Cool. And you, by the looks of your IMDb, after that course, you did a couple of short films, did you? Is that what you moved on to next?
Yeah. So I managed to get a bit of work experience at Aardman throughout my degree. So in the summer holidays, basically, I would come down to Bristol and I'd be sort of pressing out chicken wings or making eyeballs, that kind of thing. And then when I graduated, I made a short film in order to get work, more work at Aardman. And in those in-between jobs, which, I had quite a few of at the beginning, I just wanted to make stuff. And so, these short films sort of came from that, really. They came from a bit of space, but also the desire to keep learning and sort of developing.
Wow. And when you actually got that job at Aardman, what was that like?
I mean, it was just a mixture of terror, fear, massive excitement. I still remember very vividly the day I sort of came in through the doors, and it's such a sort of, you don't know, like everything in the film industry, you sort of don't know what it's like inside the studio because no one goes there. It's not like they don't have open days. So I just remember the smell and which was weirdly, it was like a mixture of baby wipes and clay.
Right.
And I also just remember thinking, this feels like college, because everyone here, they're like 5 years older than I am, but they just have this sort of energy about them and this vibe that I loved straight away. I felt very much at home here.
And because the thing I always wonder about the Aardman stuff, is there like a Bible, or do you get debriefed, or is there a rule book? Because it's all got that sort of same vibe. So how do they make sure that it does?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, so I've worked here now for just over 20 years, and I think it has changed, a lot in that time in terms of the scale. So when Aardman first started back in the 70s, it was very much, 3 or 4 filmmakers who all had a similar sensibility, although one was quite surreal and but they loved humour. And I think that tied everything they did together. They were all working in stop motion with clay. Nowhere else really in the world was doing it. There was 1 or 2 studios in America. So I guess it was born from that. And then as things got bigger and bigger, they needed to start creating sort of rules. And my boss, the head of animation, Lloyd Price, he was here, really early on and started to sort of train people up. So they went from just 4 sort of schoolboy filmmakers who had ideas for films, who were doing everything themselves, to a feature film company back in 2000 with Chicken Run. And that was when they sort of, for the first time, they had to really massively scale up. And the Bible is something, so on the last project I've just finished, I was working on Wallace and Gromit, which is coming out at Christmas. and it was my job as a supervisor to create that same Bible for the animators. 35 animators, all with a lot of knowledge about Aardman styles, but some of whom have not worked with Wallace and Gromit before, some of whom have, and I have to sort of tie all that together in one document that explains everything from how they blink, how long you might hold a pose for, to what looks right and wrong, down to the tiniest little bit of clay on a curve on an ear.
And looking back on the stuff that you've done, just to understand, because animation is something I do not know anything about, logistics wise, are you making the things, or are you just moving the things? On these different roles, how's it all work?
Yeah, on a feature film, it's very much everyone has a specialism. So the animation team won't be making any of the puppets. We've got a whole puppet team. We've got an art department who build the sets and the props. Puppet team build everything to do with the actual characters. Then cameras, lighting. It's a huge team. So the animators themselves, they are given a puppet, and what they have to do is create the performance from that. So they're purely animating, but there is a bit of there's a lot of sculpting involved as well. So the animators, Aardman generally, have to understand clay and how it works and how to move it. And when an animator's working, it could be they're on their own in their unit for a day or a week or even several weeks, just physically animating. If something goes wrong with the puppet or the set or the lights, we've got this resourceful team, at the end of a walkie-talkie, who'll come and fix stuff. But if you go away from features, you very quickly become a bit more of a generalist. So someone making a commercial, for example, or a series, you just have to get on and do more yourself. It's much more like everyone mucks in. And people love that as well. It's part of the variety that makes it interesting.
Yeah. And you've also done, correct me if I'm wrong here, because again, this is not my area. So would you, on a big feature film, might you be responsible for one particular character?
Sort of, yeah. So we tend to start small. So using, Wallace and Gromit as an example, we'd start with just the directors and myself and the other heads of department. And then as we get towards production, we'll start bringing in a couple of animators who are sort of the most experienced character animators, and they will do the development work. That will all feed into the Bible, and we're sort of finding, even though they're established characters at Aardman, every film we make, we've got new processes, we've got new types of performance. So we're really refinding the characters each time. And then those animators generally, they might click with a certain character and they'll become the character lead. And all the way through the shoot, every animator will probably animate every single character, but our character leads will do the sort of the most important shots. They're the ones that the directors just know if there's a complicated thing to create with a certain character, we go to them first. So it's like you very much cast the animators like actors. You're like, this person is really good at, menacing tiny movements, very tightly sculpted feathers McGraw. There's only maybe 5 or 6 of the animation team that we would naturally put into those shots.
And then looking at, so obviously you directed the Shaun the Sheep movie, which was a big deal in this house with my kids back when it came out. So you're directing, so I understand I can talk to an actor and I can get them to elicit certain performances. How on earth do you direct something that takes so long to come together?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a good question because we don't really consider it because we've been learning the process since day one, I guess, since Pete and Dave first did their first bit of performance and then started to delegate. You basically learn all the tools there are in order to sort of direct performance through animators. So one of the things we would do is we quite often record a live action video. So the directors will go into a unit with a video camera. They'll do a sort of, and there's some clips of these online. There's some really funny ones with Nick Park dressed as a hog. But essentially it's a really quick way of establishing what the performance is going to be. And it's a great way to discuss it, because then the animator is going to go off and animate it. And it's so organic, the process of moving a puppet frame by frame. You can never repeat it the same way twice. But also you can interpret the same piece of performance loads of different ways, just like an actor would. So a lot of it is just that conversation between the directors and the animators, like before the shot starts. And the other thing which we do a lot is we create the whole film in storyboards, like really quite detailed, to the point where they're semi-animated, and that allows us to sort of, the whole crew then refer to that. We call it the animatic. We refer to that as a way of knowing what the context is for every shot, because we're shooting out of order quite often. We've got 40 different units, so 40 different locations. Half of them are going to have Wallace in them, so all at the same time we've got 40 different locations in the film, different points in the film. It's like part of the biggest challenge when you're directing is just to be able to walk from one location in the film to another and know exactly what is going on at that point.
It must go wrong sometimes. So is there ever a situation where I don't know if you even gets this far down the line, where a scene comes in, it's been put together and it's like, oh, this isn't quite right, start again? Or how do you approach that?
Yeah, it does happen, of course, and it's a sort of creative process, and it's actually part of in a way, it's a benefit of animation and stop motion, because you have a bit more time. So whereas on live action you might film a scene, you'd probably do it a couple of times, you'd have multiple cameras. We build the plan, we build the sort of animatic storyboard, and we refine it to the point where we know which shot is going to go where and how long it lasts, to the frame, not to the second, to the actual frame. And so most of the time you can sort of get a sense of how that scene is working just by watching the storyboard. But we're constantly editing, refining, and it's been really interesting watching Nick and Merlin work on this film from this angle. So I've directed and I've worked as an animator, and now I'm sitting in between those two roles with the directors quite a lot, seeing how they work, and then with the animators, seeing how they interpret that brief. And so what is brilliant, which I've taken from this job, is that you're never really finished. You're never, like, you don't just lock it and go, that's it, that's what we're going to shoot. Every single stage is an opportunity to sort of finesse and improve and tweak, to the point where the animators might be shooting something, they might have an idea, they'll get Nick or Merlin to come into the unit, discuss it, and yeah, if it seems like it'll work, that then goes into the shot. And same with props, same with sort of gags, anything. And then the edit comes together. So we replace the animatic with those shots as they happen. And there's a sort of constant edit. Like, the edit team work on these films, they're the first in, the last out, and they're working all the way through, and they're always editing. So in the fine cut, you get the more, you get to look as a whole at the whole film and sort of, say that scene isn't right. And we had it on Farmageddon, we've had it on every film. There's always crunch points where something's not right. And we lose stuff, we might cut a whole scene. It's unlikely, because normally we'd know before we got to the end of shooting it all. But it does happen, and it always is hard for the animators. And, I really see that on this film. You do a performance as an animator, you're putting your heart out there, you're like it, you are acting it. It's painfully slow, you get through it, you present it, and there's that nervous thing, does it work, does it not work? And if it gets cut, it could have taken weeks, probably took months, what with the build and the all the work from all the crew that go into it. So it's a bitter pill, but everyone, I think, understands that it makes the film better, and that's the most important thing. If animation comes out, it's not because the animation's bad, it's because the story works better without it.
I'm assuming there's not many people like you about. There's not many people who've directed and animated stop motion feature film. Would that be right?
It's a niche, I suppose, in that, someone like Aardman, a very big company. We've got other companies like, Leica, and companies that come together for the Tim Burton films or the Wes Anderson films, they're all stop motion. They all have a similar sort of collection of people that work on them. But I suppose it is a small, you could count it on two hands, possibly. No, I mean it's around 20 people, I guess. And the animation team are very unique, so there aren't that many animators in the world. We can't just look through a directory and pick more. We literally we know most of the animators working in the industry, and they tend to move around to the jobs. So we work with people who are now in America, and a lot of European animators come here. So it is quite a specialism to get to this level of animation.
And would you say, careers wise, is there space for new people in that environment? Are you looking for people, or is it a case of, we've only got so many spots? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say it's highly competitive, and it always has been. And I'm always on the brink of like, is there going to be another film? Like literally since the day I graduated, I've been like, I'm on a film, hooray, I'm on a film, can't believe it. And then the film finishes and like, is there going to be another film? It has, for me, it's been a consistent career and a lot of the people I work with. But it's a freelance industry, so it's not like, there's a lot of colleges teaching animation, but not necessarily the skill set that we would require. And to go back, yes, there are opportunities, because there is a sort of cycle in that animators that worked a long time become directors, or they go off and write, or there is a sort of natural progression. And we do see quite a few junior animators coming in at the lower end, making their chicken wings and making the eyes. It's just slow progression, but there's definitely space for more. And I mean, what I'm part of now, my most recent sort of development has been to do more with the Aardman Academy, which is an in-house sort of training scheme to help develop and diversify the industry a bit. So it's been really nice to sort of see the enthusiasm and the talent. Because ultimately, if you're talented and you can do the job, then you're going to probably find work, because there aren't hundreds of people that do it, and that do it really well.
Yeah. So talking about the academy, tell me a little bit about it. Can anyone do it? Is it something you need to have certain qualifications to get into? How's it all work?
Yeah, it is. So the way it's been set up, so Mark Simon Hewis became the sort of head of the Aardman Academy a few years ago. It's open to anyone in the world. So I think what makes it unique is that there are no barriers of age or location. You can be a part of it. There's certain elements of it that you can do online. And there's sort of online animation courses. There are other courses, but the online animation courses are where someone will sign up. They'll then do a sort of 12-week training course, essentially. They get sent an armature and the software that they need, and they'll set up in their own home and basically animate through these different tasks. And then they'll have a mentor from Aardman, one of the animators at Aardman, who will check in every week and sort of give them feedback. So that's a really nice thing, because it feels like we're sharing some of the Aardman sort of know-how, but with people in other countries who potentially will help improve the industry around the world. And then there's another side to it, which is the side I'm involved with, which is, again, open to anyone. It's not qualification-based. It's all about the level of work, your portfolio. But I'm currently running these in-studio courses, so like a 5-week purely animation training where people come in. We've got 12 students at the moment who've basically come into the studio, and we've built a sort of academy area where they can learn. And I'm there, showing them what we do and how we do it. And they're then working on their own performance and their own technique. And the biggest thing that started last year is a filmmaking course. So it's called In Studio Stop Motion. It's an 8-month course, 6 months of which is actually in the studio. And the people that come to that basically have to apply with a film idea. So they're applying with a film idea and then coming and making it in the sort of support and the environment of Aardman, using some of the, we have writers and puppet makers and art directors. It's all really about teaching the individual how to make films using the knowledge that we have here. So it's very exciting. I mean, it's new to me. I'm sort of 5 weeks in, but it ties in very much with my experience of being at Aardman, in that I've always learnt, and everyone's always teaching everyone else here. So it's really lovely to actually be able to share a bit wider.
And can you tell when you meet one of the students, is there a certain personality type that suits this sort of work? Can you tell instinctively, like, oh, this person's, they've got it, or not?
Not really, no. I mean, it would be great if you could. It probably would have made Lloyd's job easier for the last 20 years. But it's funny, animators are a really interesting bunch of people, because some of them are really introverted and really quiet and shy, and then they do this most amazing, elaborate performance on screen. Whereas you also get very, out there people, quirky, funny. They're also very good on screen. So you can't tell necessarily, but I think everyone who's been successful has been generally easy to work with. That is a big part of it. Like anything in filmmaking, you're animating on your own, but you've got to work in a team really well, and you've got to communicate well, and you've got to understand other people, and you've got to have the technical knowledge of how much things move and when and how. But much more important than that is the actual sort of your acting ability. That's the thing that sets out the really top-end features animators. They are excellent actors, and you can't always see that in the way they talk. Some of them. There's an animator. I'm sure she won't mind. Alison Evans, who's been here for a long time. I think we both started around Were Rabbit, and she's very she's just a perfectly normal person, very quiet. You give her a brief, she'll say yes, yeah, I can do that, yeah, sure. There's no fuss. You can give her anything and she can just deliver the most amazing animation. It's just impossible. You wouldn't know that by looking at her. But we've got a whole team like that. They're all different. Everyone's completely different in terms of personality.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to think. I mean, people think you have to be patient to be an animator. I think that's a little bit of a red herring, because animators actually aren't that patient quite often.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think when you're animating, you're lost in the moment, so you're not aware of the time, because you're concentrating so much on something. It's really takes a lot of concentration. But there's not many egos in the animation business, especially in stop motion. So that's nice. Everyone's quite down to earth, and no one's pushing anyone else out of the way for work. It's just it's a family, really. It feels like that over the years.
And just thinking about patience. So if I go into a studio, I'm doing a character, I'm doing a scene, I'm spending a day in there. How much screen time do I get out that day? Can I actually watch it back that day? I mean, how much do I get?
Yeah. I mean, we'll take the first frame of a shot. That's 1/12 of a second. So generally, the average for our animation team is 5 seconds a week each. Right. So that's what we're aiming for.
Yeah.
2 seconds a day is what we'd sort of 2 to 3 seconds a day is what we'd hope for when we're shooting. And then there's all the other times where we're setting up, prepping, testing, rehearsing. So that is a feature film. You're going to work for a day. You might, at the end of it, have just under 2 seconds of footage. You can watch it. It's a snippet, but you build it and build it and build it over weeks. It's like doing a painting or something. You're like slowly adding. It takes hours. You add and add and add, and then suddenly it's finished, and you're like, oh. But if you're working on a series, you could actually shoot, 5 to 10 seconds a day. So really quite a decent amount, because it's just the level of performance is it's not going to have to hold up on a big screen. It's going to be watched once or twice. Having said that, like the Aardman projects like Sean get watched over and over again, but there's just something energy. You have to shoot fast with those. It's locked into the budget. We just can't afford to take any longer. So yeah.
Cool. And then so say I'm leaving. I've done my A levels. I'm leaving. I'm thinking about a uni course. I'm looking at the Aardman Academy. What's the best things I can do for myself to sort of give me the best chance in this industry?
Well, it's the advice I had, because I had exactly the same sort of quandary. I when I first got my foot in the door at Aardman, I was just to everyone. I was like, "How did you get here? What would you advise me to do?" And mainly, people just said you just need to practice. That's the one thing. There is a bit more, knowledge out there on the internet about how to do it. I think practicing and building up a portfolio is critical, and you could do that at university. I mean, university gives you an environment surrounded by other people doing the same thing, so that's what that offers. The Aardman Academy, the different parts of it deliver sort of like insight and technical skills, and it's what you want to do. I think the number one thing is try and understand the industry as much as you can and know where it is you want to go. Because when I graduated, I made a short film which sold me exclusively as an animator. I mean, that was the purpose of it. It's like, I'm not going to make it too ambitious. I'm going to set a character in a room, and it's all about performance. And for me, that was the key thing. If I'd wanted to go into props, production, any other side of it, that's what I'd have needed to do to focus on. And I think, that some of the other jobs around animation aren't so well known. We're trying to make it clearer what the jobs are, but if you watch the credits of a feature film, there are 250 people and 30 of them are animators. A tiny amount really. There are so many skills involved. So yeah, research is the thing, like research, and then if that's what I want to do, what skills do I need to get there? And then you just work on those skills, I would say.
Yeah. And I also noticed on Shaun the Sheep, I think it was the movie, you've got some voice credits. So what did you, how did you end up being a voice on the film, and what did you actually voice?
I've got this sort of slightly sad desire to do voices, which I quite often do around the studio, and I think to the point where, Nick and Merlin, I did quite a few of the voices in the early stages of edit, and none of them quite stuck. But I just like doing voices. It entertains me, different voices, like impressions. But what we do in the process of making any film is it's the crew that provide the voice soundtrack first. So when we do the animatic, it's the crew, normally someone in edit or a couple of people in edit. They're very good actors, and then the directors will do a lot as well. And then once that sort of storyboard is like, yes, that's working, then we go off and record the actual proper actors. And that's what the animators work to. So we always have the finished voices before the animators shoot. So on Farmageddon, it just happened that myself and Rich, who were directing, we provided the snails. That was the two snails. There was one tall and thin one shorter one. That was us.
Yeah.
And then we also did some of the hazmats, which are the sort of, the army of white sort of clad. Sorry, not white. They're in the yellow hazmat outfits. We needed a sort of group of voices, so we did some of those. And it stuck because I guess you go for the best voice for the character. So that's exactly what we needed. We do hundreds of takes. I mean, it's insane. If you assume you go and record a voice actor and you say you're going to be Shaun the Sheep, can you do a bar as if you've just seen someone falling off the edge of something, and then 200 bars later you go back to the edit room, you pick through them all, and one is right. So it's just a very lengthy process, but a really important part of the Aardman films. Partly, because often there isn't actual dialogue, so those sounds become even more important.
Right, so I've just got a couple of fun questions now. I ask, he says, fun questions. So, in your opinion, what's the best animated film ever made?
I love. Can I give you one stop frame one and one 2D? I think so. My favourite stop frame film is Nightmare Before Christmas.
Good choice.
It was the moment in my life where I fell in love with animation, and I'd gone to this film festival in Cardiff, and it was an animation festival, and they premiered this film there, and I sat there, and just everything about it, the lights, the music, the character, it's just a really wonderful thing, and it's become such a sort of cult film. But for the stop motion community, it's still one of the best animated films in terms of performance. It's just brilliant. And 2D, it's got to be The Lion King, the original sort of Disney Lion King. I think I love the energy of it, the vibrancy. And for me, both those two films, they really do what animation is capable of. They create characters and worlds that just wouldn't work for me in any other medium. It's like, it's the perfect way to create this experience, this story, and these characters. So yeah, I love both of those.
Yeah, big Nightmare Before Christmas fan. Let's pray to whoever God you believe in that they never try and do a live action. They just need to leave it alone.
Yes.
Leave it alone. Yeah. I don't mind it. I'd wear a sequel. I'll watch a sequel if it's stop motion, but please don't make a live action version.
No, definitely not.
And my last question, which I ask most of my guests, is: have you got a motto?
Have I got a motto? Well, I don't carry around a motto. Although I'm thinking if I had a really good one, I should probably have it tattooed somewhere. But I think it's going to be. Can I make one up?
You can make one up. Yeah. Let's pretend this is.
Do I have? I don't have one like in my head.
It might be. Some people have them. I guess it's more of a thing that an approach to life or an approach to work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I do. Yeah, I do have that. I think my approach is to always enjoy the moment, and it can be very stressful filmmaking, but it's just the best. I do feel like the luckiest person alive sometimes to be in this environment, working in this industry, and so it's just to soak it up and enjoy every minute.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you'd like to hear from more industry professionals, how they got into the business and how you can do the same, or you just want to listen to some cool stories from movie sets around the world, then please do subscribe to the Honest Filmmaker podcast.